folks, how are we doing? Yo, we're live. Hello. How's it going, guys? If you could let me know you're here, everything's working all good and everything, that'd be swell. Thank you very much. I've got about 40 people here so far. So let's wait and see. Although I think everything's going to be good. Right, so introduction. We are going to be covering Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and hyperliquid. We're going to do chart requests after that in the Q&A. And then I'm going to teach how I use technical analysis to make trade plans and also how I execute trades, basically. Very, very simple sort of outlook on that. And I have normally got an idea in mind for like a psychological trader lifestyle segment, but kind of I had an idea the other day and I've forgotten it, and I couldn't really think about what I wanted to drum up and talk about. So if anyone's got any questions or anything about trader lifestyle and trading journey and everything, then let me know and I can cover that at the end. Otherwise, this will be a bit of a shorter live stream compared to normal, but we'll see. So the stream is partnered with Hyro Trader, and they are a crypto prop firm and very cool platform. And I think they're going to be getting very big over the next few years. So I'm happy to align with them. Essentially, if you sign up with them, you can use my link, which will be in the description and the comments. You'll get 10% off of challenge fees. And I normally do two-step accounts. It's just something I prefer because it's just something that I've got used to. But also with one-step accounts, so you have to be a little bit more careful with the rules because a lot of places have like trailing drawdowns and trading equities and all this kind of stuff. So I normally prefer two-step account. It's a very simple process. You got 10% profit target in phase 1 to pass, 5% profit target in phase 2. You got max drawdown of 10%, and then you lose the challenge. And daily max drawdown is 5%. So extremely simple stuff and not really that restrictive at all, considering that you've got quite a lot of leeway with your daily max drawdown. And then if you do the one-step account, you just got a 10% profit target. And then again, you've got your max daily drawdown 10% is 5% for the daily drawdown, and then the max drawdown is 10%. So check them out. They are a growing platform. They've been around for quite a long time. They've been around since 2022. They have very fair prices as well. You'll notice that for a 100K account, $579 minus the 10% if you use my fee. So you got that for about $500. Most places offer them for about $900 to $1,000. So that's another reason why I was happy to partner with them, is that they've got actually pretty fair prices that are kind of more aligned with the industry standard. So check them out. And if you do sign up with them, let me know and I will let you in the Discord and I will help you through your challenge or, any questions you've got or whatever. But that'll be a way to get into the Discord as well. So enough of that malarkey. Let's get into the charts, shall we? And let's start on H4 on Bitcoin. So here, I'm going to move it like that. We've had this range. We had obviously the big drop from 82K, and we've been ranging since the beginning of June now. We've always got a 2-month range. And I don't know about anyone else, but we seem to get this big drop and then kind of expect continuation. And then suddenly analyzing the market, and 2-3 months passes, and it's like, oh shit, we're still ranging. And like, where the fuck does the time go? So it's been ranging, and then late last week comes back into the range after a deviation to the downside. We've had a deviation to the upside, hits the highs and lows pretty cleanly, hits the highs last Wednesday, created this higher low on Friday, and then over the weekend, this is the wrong chart. There we go, that's a little bit better. I don't know what that was all about. I'm going to have to start that again. But you can see we had like the same type of thing, essentially. We had the deviation above and the deviation below, and price has just been kind of going around sideways. We had the drop. I'll just start again because that chart threw me off. We had a big drop. We had a staggered sort of compressed area at the lows, big impulse before we get this. So this is all one big zone that we're looking at, and it hasn't yet come right to the extreme of it. It's come close to it, but not at the extreme. It creates a lower low and has spent basically a month just chopping sideways. Now we have here, we have a drop after respecting the high, and then it retraces, drops down, tests it, and then from that area, we create a lower low. So we know within this area, this price level, we're going to have an interest in selling, because we can see obviously that's where the selling created that low. When price revisits it, it puts that first test in, and then it comes, ranges, drops down, pushes up above it, pushes back down below it, and is now in the process of pushing back above it. So if this move is going to continue, the target is going to be 68k. If it drops from here and creates a lower low, this is going to look pretty bearish and to get a short. So I actually have my automated system that says if we get a candle close below this point, below 63.625, if we get a candle close on H4 below that point, then it's going to open a short for me in look to get a sell-off. I have a small long open, which I did post that it looked like it was going to break out today. And essentially what we had was this range just keeps ranging, drops, pushes up, higher low, spends the weekend kind of chopping around, and then goes to push up in the early hours of the morning, drops down to the range low, and then rips up to create a high in the context of the range, also closing above that just about, higher low, and now it has pushed up as a high. So the momentum is to the upside. So you would expect this to continue, and my target is 67k. I'm not going to go too much higher than that because I think we have big resistance at 68k, and I would like to get a sorry, my camera fucked up then. Want to get a short from up here ideally. So I'm trying to keep with the intra-week momentum, but I do feel like this isn't gonna push us up to like 80, 90k. I'm not getting that vibe with the price action that we've got. So it's just, even if you are bullish, I think it's wise to just play level to level, take your profits at big resistance levels like this, and then just don't spend too much time in the market in the moment, because especially to the upside, because we are still in a downtrend. If this level breaks, if 68k breaks, then I will be looking for retraces back down below it, and then look to see if we can get momentum back to the upside. That's the bullish case for me. I'm not really looking for big longs until that's broken. But the flip side of that is if we get some exhaustion here, or maybe we get a little bit higher because it's never perfect, can look for a short there back down. Or like I said, if this now comes back down into the range and starts closing below the lows of the range, we're going to have two failed push-ups, and then this is a failed low, this is a failed low, and then you've got potentially the move then after several pushes to the upside. So the process and the outlook is really simple. This is the range that I've got for the map, and you can see it's respecting it and telling a nice little story around it. But it's been very difficult to look at anything because the volume is super low, really small candles, big wicks to both sides, and then just kind of big moves out of nowhere. So happy to see this just move back up now into resistance. I've got a TP at about 67.6. So from there, I'm not really sure what happens, but my plans, as I said, is to look for some sort of exhaustion, look for a sort of pattern like this where it breaks down a couple of times, and then look to short it. But also wary of the fact that we might get enough momentum to break above it, in which case I will look for similar sort of price action to here, where it creates higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then look to continue that move up. So it is a key level at this point, 68K. It is where this entire market structure is bearish and holding us down. The next level above that, I would say, if we've got this big high here, and then we've got sort of the origin down there, that is where the buying took place for this entire swing. I would say then our decision point is there, about 71K. So ideally, really, anywhere between 68K and 71K, I'm still looking for shorts. If we start getting above 71K and then we get a retrace and it holds the retrace, then, you know, I'm starting to think higher prices. I might start thinking about buying some Bitcoin. But overall, I still feel like this does want to come back down at some point. Not yet. It might not even be till next month or the month after. We might get a couple of green months in a row. But overall, just the price action, the volume, it reminds me of when we were moving up here. It didn't look that great. It didn't look that organic, and it didn't look that sustainable. So I am just playing it level to level at the moment. So we'll kind of see really what happens. It's quite difficult at the moment. Of course, it's just going sideways, and I'm looking to trade at the extremes or at like key levels. Unfortunately, not getting the breakdowns. But I feel like if it comes up here or to up here at 71K, that's an exhausted move there that shows its hand for a drop. I believe will probably follow through in the same way that 82K did. And, you know, we get a little bit of green and everyone gets super, super bullish. And that normally tends to kind of happen at the highs. So I can imagine if it gets to 68K and breaks it, people are going to get super bullish. And then my spidey senses are just going to be tingling a little bit and just say we might get a reversal at that point. So we'll wait and see. But these are all the key levels for me. Below 63, 625, I'll start looking for shorts. At 68K, I'll look for exhaustion and look for shorts. If it blasts through it or it's got enough momentum to continue it, I will look for shorts at about 71K on an exhausted move. But we shall wait and see. Okay, Ethereum on the 4-hourly time frame. So big sort of cluster. This was like a big compressed area here, basically. And this was like we have this compression, impulse, compression, impulse. And we normally go to the extremes of it. But I think we, like, based on how this is looking, it's looking quite strong, actually. Could expect to move up to about 2100. So what's happened is we have this really big like W bottom pattern, and now it's breaking out. It rejects, but it's now coming up quite hard. If this move continues, that's where I'll be looking ideally 2140 for it to end, to find some exhaustion. Or if it ends up putting a lower high in here somewhere and then breaking back down below this range, that's going to be an epic short as well, because we'd have two like clear lower highs. Sorry, two highs. One's a lower high, and then a lower low, a lower high, and a lower low. It's just a textbook pattern from that point. But it is looking pretty damn strong. We have this really clean range, which was sitting under the extreme of this compressed channel. So this was right at the end of it. And that's where you get the best trades. So at this point, get the impulse from that CPI candle, moves sideways, rips up, tests the low, deviates below it, and then spent all weekend just kind of farting around in the middle. Today pushes up to the high, pushes up to the high, higher low, and then has now put in this big momentum candle to the upside and is looking like it's going to follow through. So Another higher low and then another higher high is another way you could chase into this. If it comes down back into the range, you'd be looking for a higher low and then looking to get long. But from here, if it does break the lows, this is going to be a pretty bearish sign that it couldn't sustain this move and that it's now creating a lower low after failing to push up. That would be a really great short and probably the top of this swing. So I am looking out for that. I'm looking out for a higher low as well, and then to continue this because it's got quite a lot of space up to the next target area at 2100. So I'd be looking to run up there. If you're in a long, I'd be looking for like 2100 as a good place to target, and you could be trailing your stop like under this range, because if it comes like from here, if it now creates a lower low and tags you out, it's not going to be a very bullish sign, and it should be looking to drop a little bit lower after that. So yeah, that's Ethereum. Not really much to say on that front. Has anyone got any questions on Ethereum or Bitcoin so far? Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep jumping through. Is anyone short or long at the moment? Anyone got any trades open on Bitcoin or Ethereum? Also, this reminds me, actually, on Thursday, I am going to be doing a live day trading stream for my subscribers. So if you want access to that, hit subscribe on X and then DM me your Discord handle. I'll send you an invite to get in. Or if you buy a challenge from Hyro Trader, send me a DM and I'll get you in, and then you'll also have access to that stream. And I'm going to be basically taking a 100K challenge account from Hyro Trader live on stream. And it's not one that they've given me, it's one I'm buying. They want to give me one. They want to give me a 200K account, and I'll get 3% of the profits if I pass it. But they want me to do that for like social media content. But I said I'm not doing that. It's all just going to be like genuine organic content. It's all going to be like transparent. I'll buy the account, and then I'll run through it and trade it, and hopefully it'll go well. But if it's not, you know, you get a little bit of entertainment, but I'm sure you're going to learn a ton just from watching me trade. Even if I'm sitting on my hands, you're going to learn a ton anyway. So if you want to access to that, hit subscribe or buy one of the challenges and let me know. Use code TraderMatt or follow the link in the description or the comments. Right, let's look at Solana, because again, not a huge amount is happening to talk about. So let's start on daily. On daily time frame, big drop, and then we've had this range that we were in for months, dropped that back down below it, and I was hoping we were going to see the back end of this range, but now it's testing the underside of the low. Not yet made a high, but that would be pretty bullish if it does start making a high and heading towards the range high. It would also provide a pretty nice short opportunity there, because I still think this market is coming lower. I'll be looking for this to fail as a bear, looking for a lower low, lower high, and then another lower low to send this down to $50. Of course, I am thinking, you know, we've got to be on the lookout for a bottom, and all of the bullish moves are very persistent and not really giving shorts much of a breakdown. So I'm relatively sure that we're going to come down again based on everything that we're seeing, but it's hard to ignore the bullishness at the moment. So here on the 4-hourly time frame, when price puts the end of this swing, it comes up, puts this supply zone in, or range if you like, and it respects the highs and the lows of that range really nicely, and then tries to push up and then fails, and then we've got a big drop down, and so far it just hasn't sustained it. It's put in a bit of a channel, and I'd like to see that drop to the downside ideally. To get long, for me, I want to see this level break and then put in a higher low and then look to get long. So not really sure what's going to happen. It's really difficult to tell because we are in like such choppy price action. But if you notice this kind of compressed channel where we have a drop down, we have a drop down, and we have a compressed channel. You can see it's just a series of lower highs, quite clean and quite strong moving, whereas this is rather flat by comparison, and looks like it may take out the high of that structure. So what I would like to see is for a price to come back up into this supply and then look to short it back down. That's kind of my ideal situation. But it's really difficult at the moment to want to get into a trade because of this chop that we've been in basically all month, and would like to see it impulse down or up just to get a sense of direction and then get some more conviction in some trades, because at the moment there's not much to go off of. On the hourly, again, you can see just a lot of chop. We have down here, which is basically where the buying took place to put this swing high in. From this point, this changes the market structure, or attempts to change the market structure, because we've got a big area of resistance that's been respected multiple times, and then at this point, instead of respecting it again and dropping, it pushes through. So we know there's a lot of buying at that level, and we can see, of course, that from that level, second touch of it, price is now pushed up higher. On the first test of it, you expect the biggest bounce, which it does here. On the second, you don't expect as big of a bounce, and you would think that it would be coming down. So if it does make a higher high now, if it does come back above 79, you've got to start thinking, okay, maybe the market structure, maybe even the overall pattern is changing and looking pretty bullish. In which case, I would look for price to take out the supply, look for a higher low, and then look for some sort of reversal range to form in the same way that we've got here, where we have multiple pushes out of one direction and respecting the lows and then continuing. So I'm essentially just looking for exhaustion up here, or looking for a continuation up here. At the moment, I just don't have enough confidence in what it's doing to be able to get into into size. So I'm just sitting out. Basically, I took a short last week that got hit at break even. And now it's just, I don't know what to really look at until we get to either one of this extreme, or come back down to this extreme and take it out, and then look for a reversal to short back down, or simply look for a continuation if it comes back down here for it to drop through. But up until that point, it's a guess about which way it's going to go. The momentum does look strong to the upside, but that can change extremely quickly, and it can just nuke back down. So I'm just marking these levels, and I've got this big range here, and I'll just rather take the extreme at about $82. So this is like anywhere between essentially this low at 79 and then this high at 82. I'll be looking for exhaustion to send it back down, but also wary of the fact that we are looking rather strong bullish wise, and look for a break as well. So for example, this is like the perfect range as a top, and that's where I got my short. So it comes up, ranges, takes the high, tries to take the lows, but doesn't, rips all the way back up above the high, tries to take the low, but can't even get to it, tries to rip above the high, and then just collapses through it. So I'd be looking for similar sort of behavior where it's failed a couple of times to push up and then created lower lows as a reversal. But for more of a continuation, maybe something like this, where it comes up, takes out the lows, pushes high, higher low, and then continues up. So they're the kind of reference points I have for how I'm looking to trade this level, and then also like this level if we come down there. So I'd say mark those levels out on your charts and use them as your map. And then you don't really want to, as they say, diddle in the middle, because yeah, it's just anyone's guess really. DJ and Gamblers here. Hello, mate. And Sunny Orbits here. Anyone on YouTube? Yes, we've got a couple of people on YouTube. Zurba. Hello, mate. And then Nuke XBT. Zek. Good short loading. Okay, we'll look at that in the next section. I'm just going to run through hyperliquid, and then we'll get to chart requests and Q&A. So, hyperliquid on H4, really clean price action. Just need the right volume and the right move now. So the interesting thing that happens is that it pushes up to create the all-time high, comes right back down to the extreme of the low, and fakes it, and then pushes back up to create a higher high and a new all-time high. From there, it actually wicks the previous all-time high, drops down and finds this area here where price retraces back to a key level, which is where the sell-off created this low and broke this demand. And then sitting there on H2 was a super, super clean range that had formed like that. And this is again exactly what I'm talking about. I'm looking for on every other coin on a push up. For exhaustion, I want to see a range try several times to go in one direction, but eventually fail and then push to the downside. So this was a really clear, so 1, 2, 3 pushes up, and then you got the higher lows each time. But then when you get that third push, which sometimes tends to be the magic number, and then you get big momentum to create lower lows, that was a really clean short trigger. And then here, after breaking out below it, we have a supply zone, we have drop, base, drop, and then on a retest of the base, comes right up to the extreme and then sends back down. So it's looking pretty bearish. That's the story of price I've just told you there. This price action of hyperliquid. This is just a retrace low. This is like we drop down and then from this point it retraces back up. So it's not super important, but in terms of like adding context to this swing down, this level has significance because it's sitting on the break of that area, but it's also where the sell-off continued and created this low to create a lower low. So on a retest of this level, as it's now happening now, I'd like to see another range form and then start breaking down to look short. On the higher time frames, we have a pretty clean range, I should say here as well. On H4, drop, and then it's created the range, testing the high, maybe a deviation above before lower like so. So my bullish case is that if it does break above 63, I wouldn't necessarily take that as a break, but what I'd like to see if I'm saying it's pushing up is you have a higher high, some lower lows, and then another higher high. Makes more sense that it's going to push up, and that's when I'd call it flipped, and that's when I'll start looking long with a target at the top of that supply zone. But I feel like what's more likely to happen here on on hyperliquid, maybe lower time frames like here on M15, is we'll get that range like so, and then look for a breakdown or a break to the upside and continue this trend and this current momentum that we're experiencing today. So really clean levels. It just hasn't built. Obviously, it's Monday. We're not expecting a huge amount of action on Mondays. We've had quite a bit already. You know, it's pushed up quite nicely, but it might be putting in the highs of the week into key supply zones across multiple charts. So got to take that into consideration. But the takeaway from this really is we need to sit on our hands and wait for a little bit more price action to develop because it's super choppy market conditions at the moment. So expecting V reversals all the time is not the one. Even when you get the V reversals, you've got multiple hours to get in. So it makes sense just to wait a little bit more, wait for the price action to build and wait for patterns to develop, and then we'll trade the confirmation of the patterns rather than like the guesswork, basically. So yeah, that's the 4 main charts. Any questions on that? Any observations? Anyone in any trades? I'm gonna have a little bit of water and then we're gonna move to the chart requests and Q&A section. Zec. Zec. Let's have a look at this. Okay. So let's just take some of these off. Yeah, maybe a currently good short is loading on Zec. So we had, and I've marked all this before, the high here retraces all the way back down, tests the high as a lower high, puts in a pretty nice range at the high actually. And this is kind of like what I look for. Push up into supply, drop down, test multiple times at the high, and then drop down, create a lower low. Doesn't send the first time, but then it tests the underside of the range, and then it nukes. It retraces, and then creates this sell-off here, which creates the lower low. So we know that's a key area. And if we trace it all the way to the right, that's kind of where we're at the moment. It did break it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to start trending up, because it has created a lower low, and it's used this previous level here as nice support. So on the way up, we're getting a series of higher highs, and this higher high, the origin was there, and it breaks that level, and from here creates this supply zone and drops. And then instead of respecting it and the trend and continuing to a lower low, we get a break to the upside, which we'll probably see on M15. So sitting on the break of this level, we have got a pretty clean demand zone, which is basically where price breaks out of the downtrend, puts in this swing, and has bounced off of it once. And then look how clean this range is on M15, right? Beautiful. Bounces double bottom, comes back up to supply here. And this is where we get a sell-off, retrace, and then the sell-off comes down to create and break this low. And then on a retest of it, it creates a lower low. So we know there's selling liquidity here. It ranges and then breaks out, tests it again, and then breaks back down. So we're now retesting that area. So we have a bit of a range that is forming at the low of the previous range. I would just want to see a little bit more price action develop now, a little bit more sideways. If it starts creating higher highs, higher low, higher high, looks like a move to chase to the upside, but also could be a really nice point where we get this sort of reversal again to send us down to lower lows. So that's how I'll be looking at Zcash. But yeah, I'm really not sure what to expect. Of course, I don't really trade this, but if it does start pushing up, your target next would be 649. So I think you've got quite a lot of empty space here on the left. So it could continue up, but below this level at 520, market structure intra-week has changed, and then we start looking to further downside. This level has been tapped once here, so you might expect that to break and then look to start trading down to 410. Yeah. So yeah, that is Zcash. Just get rid of some of the crap. INJ. I swear, did I do that last week as well? INJ USD. No, whoa. We got some green. Look at this. Right at the bottom of the chart. It's accumulating, right? So my kind of answer with charts like this is that it's had its heyday. It's come back down. Maybe in the next cycle it has another heyday that goes up quite a lot. I just don't trust these sorts of things these days to continue. So we've got the end of like this entire chain here at $10. which is basically where you got the impulse down, retrace, and then this all just kind of collapses from there. So we've got the high here, another level there. This is where we get downtrend, and then price tries to push back up, fails, and then impulse, retrace, and then compresses before impulse and back down. So this is kind of like the end of that entire swing. Breaks it, and then we've got the decision point sort of here. This is where we break that high, and instead of dropping down, it pushes up from here. And then if we just mark max pain, we can see it bounces off of there and then creates a pretty clean-ish range here where we can see the behavior where impulse up, sideways, 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 tries to push up, higher low, tries to push up, and is now breaking up. So looking quite good for longs. And now I'd probably say it's going to come up to about 7.3 is a good target. If it breaks down from here, it's going to be super bearish. There's going to be a really bad false breakout, and then you can get short. But I think this looks quite strong, and I think it looks good to push up to about 7.3 is where I would target on this, basically. DGen Gambler is currently short Bitcoin and NQ. Let's have a look. I mean, I've covered that on Bitcoin, but yeah, oh yeah. Doesn't look too hot, does it? You've got the entire range sort of like that. It's come back down to the range lows. And now, is this going to start looking like a top? Or is it going to just keep doing what SPX does? Sorry, NASDAQ does and push up. But looks fairly similar, sort of, where it might do this. Over the rest of the year, it could be really boring. But it's definitely looking quite heavy. If I'm looking for shorts, I'd like to see it take out the lows, retrace, and then look to get short. But yeah, this is looking quite heavy now. I hope it works out for you. Even on Bitcoin, like, I don't know if they're, I mean, they have periods where they're correlated, but it doesn't mean they're always correlated. But same sort of thing, if it starts taking out the lows, then I expect a lot lower. All right, any other chart requests or questions about trading or like my trading or anything? I do have a question on X, but I don't know if I'm going to read it all out because it's not really, there's not really a question on there. Tan Supna, BTC long from 64.7 for 10 days. 64.7, ouch. That's a pretty boring hold, isn't it? When was 10 days ago? The 10th of July. So you've been long from about 64.7 for 10 days. How did you get that? Oh, damn. Well, at least you're back in green now, so well held instead of like, instead of puking it. Okay, let me see this question. It's not really a question. This is AI0LAS on X. This is just like your life story. Do you want everyone to hear your story? There's no question on there, to be honest, mate. So I've got nothing really to answer or add to that. I've got a massive essay from you. I'll show everyone. Like that's the question is. I can't cover that. Sorry, bro. You'll have to send a question in. If you're here, then let me know. DJ and Gambler asks, does your strategy mostly focus on the 1 hour? No, it doesn't. It basically depends on the volume and the price action and what actually looks best. So if I've got patterns, right, where I just want to trade a simple range breakout. So I'll just basically wait. I'm going to cover this in a minute anyway. I'll just wait for a range to form, and then I want to see it break to the upside a couple of times in order to get long, or I want to see it break to the downside in order to get short, right? Sometimes I will just basically cycle through the time frames to find something that looks clean. So here, there was nothing here that looked like a trade pattern, so I didn't trade it. But if we look down on H1, again, I could make some sense of it, but not really. And then on H4, there was a little bit of sideways. Again, if I jump down to H1, it looks a little bit cleaner and a little bit more information. And then I will basically, as I can see here, I can see a clean range here on this time frame. But if I'm on H4, it's not so clean. If I'm on M15, I can see how it's moving a little bit nicer. So the answer is really like I will cycle through the time frames at key levels, and I will wait for a pattern that looks kind of clean. Like it sounds really noobish, but basically if you just find a pattern that you can make sense of, usually that means there's enough volume in it for you to trade it. Like here, this is not tradable, even though it's going sideways, and it breaks and it follows the kind of rules that I have for myself. But it all just comes down to really like what time frame looks like it's got the cleanest chart, and the cleanest pattern, and then I'll look to trade that basically. So it's not, I prefer kind of trading on H1, M30 on Bitcoin. M15 is like my ideal kind of time frame because I kind of feel like I've got the best of both worlds. I've got that kind of swing trading mindset, but I'm not jumping in on a super low time frame that needs a lot of attention, but it's low enough to move enough on the day to give me some trades. So yeah, that's kind of the answer is I'll just look for, if I've got key areas marked, I'll just move down to a time frame where I can make sense of the pattern, and then look to trade it. So like here on H4, like I said, this one doesn't look that great. And then you go down to the hourly and I can make, or even 30-minute, I can make more sense of it. Like you got the impulse up, hits the key supply, and then breaks the high, holds the lows, fakes the high, holds the lows, fakes the high, back down to the lows, tests the high under the underside of it, deviates below, hits the high, and then drops down below the low. And I'm getting all of that on M30, but I've got a clean pattern here, basically. You're looking at the extreme part of price, then range break out or down. Yeah, basically. So again, I'm going to cover that in a minute, but I will mark the extremes of key levels or big ranges like this, and then I will look for something. I will look for something down here, like on 4-hourly time frame here. I can't get a trade, but if I go down to like M30, I can now see a clean range that has formed. Drops to the lows, creates the range, fakes the lows, tests the high, higher low, and then pushes up with strength, and then up and away. So that's coming down at the extremes. If you watch any of my content, basically I will say price is going to get the price is going to usually gravitate towards the extremes of levels, And then once you're at the extreme of a level, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to respect it, or it's going to break it and then start a new trend. So if I just wait for a range to form at that key level and then look for the breakout in line with my bias, sometimes, it takes it takes a lot of experience and nuance to and understanding of the flow to figure out when you're going to get a fake breakout versus where it's going to give you like a genuine trend. It takes a little bit of experience to kind of read it correctly, but in general, the easiest way I can say is like, if you've got a key supply, you're going to wait for a range to form, and it might do a couple of fake breakouts, right? And then start pushing up like so. But that comes down to your patience, understanding like the market conditions were very choppy here, for example. But to answer the question, yeah, it is essentially just waiting for a range to form at a key level and then waiting for a breakout and then following that breakout, usually in line with the higher time frame trend. But the time frame doesn't matter. It all depends on where the cleanest pattern is. And if I find a pattern on M5, I'll trade it. But if I'm doing multiple things and I can't give it the headspace, then I'm not going to trade it, and I will look for something higher. But yeah, because it's amazing. I watch your video. You're mostly swing trading, which is awesome. Yeah, I prefer day trading. I find swing trading really boring, but because of my lifestyle and the amount of stuff that I've got on, I can't give it enough focus, and I haven't got enough of a consistent schedule to maintain the mindset for lower time frame trading. I'm going to get back into it eventually, and as I was saying, I'm going to be day trading on Thursday on a live stream in my subscriptions channel. So hit subscribe on X if you want that, to come and watch how I do things intraday. And then you'll get for the rest of the month daily market updates. You'll get educational content, and then you'll have access to the Discord. But I'll be able to like show things way more how I do it. But essentially, yeah, I'm just waiting for these sort of reversal patterns. Like here, for example, you've come down to the bottom, right? You're at a key level, but you can see how scrappy this all is. And it's like, and then eventually comes back down to the bottom, and it makes way more sense and gives you way cleaner information, clean impulse up. So that's the cleaner pattern versus like all of this. And it's just a case of sometimes waiting for that. When there's enough volume in the chart, you'll get clean patterns like so. Tom CCFC 18. Do you prioritize personal funds over prop? Can you trade Bitcoin on FTMO? I went through this last week. If you go onto the YouTube channel of the Trader Matt podcast, and look at last week's video, and it'll be the last section or the second from last section. It'll be timestamped in the description. I'll break down what I feel like you should have. And number one is always a personal account, because you've got no rules, and that's the thing that you should be looking to grow over the long term. You have an investment account, sorry, is your number one. Number two is your personal trading account. The investment account will always outperform, or mostly always outperform your personal trading account. So I find it wise to have that, and then build that in the background, and don't withdraw anything from it. And then have your personal trading account, again, where you're looking, because I mean, you want to be a trader, right? And you want to grow your money. And one of the difficult things when you're growing money is if you have to live off of it, or you have to take withdrawals. So you have the personal account, which is like the main focus. That keeps your score. That shows you your ability. That shows you like you have enough. You collect data on that, where you can see your winning and losing periods, and you can get a better idea of how you trade. And then thirdly, you have the prop accounts, which is what I trade to get monthly cash flow, and not risk loads of capital, and not have to take money out of my personal account or my spot account. So, and actually use some of the profits to fund those accounts. So yeah, I always I always say that one is your investment account, second is your personal account, and then third is a prop account. You can trade Bitcoin on FTMO. That's why I trade it mostly alongside my personal account. But as I've been saying, you can also look at HyroTrader and use code TraderMatt for 10% off. They're a crypto native prop firm, so you have a lot more coins to trade on there. Like I don't have hyperliquid on FTMO, for example. So you can't trade that there, but you can trade that on HyroTrader, and I'll be talking about them a lot more. But as I said, with them, it's basically the way that I have looked to align with a prop firm is essentially just finding someone that's almost similar to FTMO in terms of their rules, in terms of their transparency, in terms of their reliability to pay out, and also their challenge fees, very, very similar. So yeah, that is HyroTrader. So again, you can look in the description or go to hyrotrader.com and use code TraderMatt for 10% off. Tansupna, I'm sorry if that's said wrong. I mentioned about my automated strategy at some point. Is it the same trading rules, timeframe pairs? So it's important to say that it's not a fully automated system, and it is not like in its final form at all. I'm building it as I go along in stages, and I imagine it's going to be a months-long process whenever I can find time. But basically, it is so I trade on MetaTrader. That's what I've always done since I started trading like 11 years ago. And it's what's called an expert advisor. And it's essentially a script that you can run over the top of MetaTrader. And I've got it to look like a lot size calculator, so I can basically say to it, if price closes below or above this barrier on a certain time frame, open a trade. And essentially, if I've got a range and we're in the middle of a range like this, and let's say we've got an uptrend and I've gone to bed here, maybe we've got another breakout and it's coming back down, and I don't want to take a long here in case it drops back down. And let's say I've gone to bed, or it's like heading to New York session, I'm going to be out for the afternoon. I'm going to say, right, if price gets above this range high and closes, open a long, and I'll say I might, for example, say right here above this point, go long, and then place my stop loss once the order is executed below this point, and then it will use a predetermined amount of risk at that point, which is usually 0.5%, for example, or on my prop account 0.1, 0.2%, and then I'll build positions like that. So that's kind of how I use it. It's semi-automated, so it's still reliant on my discretion. But for example, on Bitcoin, I had it running open last night, and said if it came back down, let's say I think we were at the highs here yesterday. Yeah, we were sort of at these highs, and I said if it comes down and closes below this range low on H4, open a trade, because I think we're gonna nuke. But you can see it respected the range low and then has now broken above it. So yeah, it's basically my discretionary rules, but I've taken out a lot of the human and emotional side of things to say, right, let's just be mechanical. If it now closes above this, I want to enter. I don't want to like try and enter just ahead of that. Like if I, for example, had said like I want to go long here, trying to anticipate that move, like that's the human side of it, and then it comes all the way back down, I've fucked it up. I just strictly want a specific time frame close above a certain point, and just to take out the need to sitting in front of the charts, but also like the human emotions from building up. Okay, cash 4010. What can we look for to help determine if the break of a range will continue or if it will be a deviation? Good question. A very good question. If you go to if you go to Kraken Crypto Exchange on YouTube, and look for my price action trading series, I think it's episode 3 or 4 where I say fake out or breakout. How do you determine it? I can go into it a lot more detail in that video. But essentially, it is a difficult skill, and it is something that it can be mitigated, but it's something that will just build with experience. Essentially, let's try to find a good example. Trying to think where I've been fucked off of one. Oh, I mean, this is a good one, actually. So here, I mean, we just use this range. I took this short, right? I took when this broke down, I had my automated system triggered this short, actually. So we have the range, and then it breaks out. So this is the first breakout, and normally I look at that as a signal of intent, and then you can see obviously it does follow through, but then it comes back into the range. I want to see it come up and then drop back down and create a lower low. So once it's made that initial break and then a lower high, and then that next lower low is more confirmation for me that it's going to drop. So I look for 2 breakouts of the range. In reversals, like you can see here, so if we're trending, 2 breakouts is usually enough to confirm it, because that first one like almost always comes back into the range or fakes the other side or like trends the other way. So once you've had that first breakout in a trend, I'll be looking for the second breakout of that range. So it has to retest it and then come back down and create a lower low or a high high if we're going long. And then I take that and then I chase it. In a reversal situation like this, technically that was the short here or this here, because it's dropped below the range and then it faked the highs and then it's closed back down below the lows and then it's reversed, right? So it's a little bit of experience as well that says I've been burned on similar situations like this, so I'm not going to take it, but the signs are there. And usually if you get the right signs, you can, like, let's say here, for example, you can see that it trends down, puts in a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. And then once you have that second move there, that second lower low, I start trailing my stop loss as well, because I'm not sure if it is going to be a fake out or if it's going to be a genuine trend. And in this case, like I had to close my trade early because, oh no, it was actually up here. It was last week. My bad. It was this one. But you get the drop down, you see, and then the retest, and you can see you get the lower high that respects the range high. If I just zoom in a little bit and take some of this off again. Let's make that neater. So we use the high of the trend. Let's just get rid of this because we know where it is. And then I usually use the wick. In this case, it does work out, right? So trends up, drops down, and then creates a lower high and a lower low. How do you know it's a fake out or a breakout? Well, then it comes back up to give more information as a lower high, and then drops back through to create the double confirmation lower low, and then trends down. It was just unfortunate. Again, you can, if you get the right sign, usually you'll get a bit of an impulse away to protect yourself if needs be. In this case, it did. So it lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. And then when it was down here, I trailed my stop and then got tagged out here. So there's no real hard and fast answer to that, other than I normally wait for as many breakouts as possible and take the first one as a signal of intent. Does that help? Hi, what is your trigger and what is your invalidation? Adeluse asks, for what? I mean, my the double confirmation technique is essentially my trigger. I'm going to cover this in the next section in a little bit more detail, actually, about how I look to trade around technical analysis levels. What is your security margin? What do you mean by that? What does that mean? My security margin for what? Do you use limit or market? I use market orders. I used to use limit orders when I was a swing trader, but in the same sort of way that Cash has asked about how can you determine whether you've got a fake out or a breakout. If I'm seeing this impulse now and I just like leave a limit order on here and then go about my day, I don't know if this is just going to like bounce and put lower highs in before lower lows. So I don't like doing that, but I used to strictly trade that. So I trade on candle closes and then I enter at market once I've had a lower high or a lower low, or sorry, a higher high or a lower low, or whatever the case is. So yeah, that should hopefully answer that question. Right, I'm going to have a little break of water and then get onto the section about how I use technical analysis. So I'm going to do a top-down analysis, and then I'll show you, maybe I'll do it on cable so it's a chart you guys don't know, and then I'll show you how I use technical analysis to make my decisions and then enter a trade. And I don't want to be too much longer, actually, because it's getting on a little bit and I'm pretty tired. My son is going through a developmental leap. He is 2 next month. And yeah, he's keeping us awake at night. Not fun. All right, so here we are on GBP USD. So essentially, I don't know if I've got the replay tool working because that might help things. Does it work? Yes, perfect. Now, how do I get out of it? Just hit that, don't I? Cool. So, if we have this big high, right? I'm basically, when I eyeball in charts, I'm just marking the big areas and then I can go from there. So always look to the left. Where does it come from? It came from this low here. And then that low breaks and then we can see the entire level is sort of something like that, but no one wants to trade that level that big, unless you're like Trader Main or Donald, who like to have big zones like that. I can't do that if I'm day trading. So I know there's a lot of squiggles here. I can see on the lower time frame there's going to be the end of the chain up here. But for the argument's sake, let's just use what we can see on this time frame. So I'm just building the story of price in for my analysis, just to kind of see where the liquidity is, where the buyers and sellers are mismatched, and where there's an imbalance, which is going to be sending price in one direction, right? So I'll know at this point, price breaks, pushes up, and then nukes back down, and then pushes all the way back up. So now I have a range here where I can build an idea of what is happening. And I remember trading this, actually. I got fucked on it last year. I hadn't traded all year and then like came back into this nonsense. So if we are, let's say, at this point, can I get the replay? Oh, fuck. Start new. There we go. You can tell I don't use this often. All right, there we go. So if we're here, and I know we've got a key level here, this is basically where the sell-off broke this low and then formed this entire swing down. So I know at the extreme of that level, extreme of all of this, we're going to get a trade. We might also get one here as well, right? We have a range that has formed down here. So I know we've pushed up, created a range, and we've continued. I know if we're going to come back down here, it's likely that we're going to have a reaction to this point and to look for that range to break and then continue the downtrend. Or if it breaks above it and then retests the level, I'm going to look for a range to form at this previous range and then continue the move. But let's say we get to this point and it's just ripping, right? And there's no way for me to get in. I've got my key level there and I've got my key level there now. So this is where the buying took place to break the downtrend, because remember, we're in a downtrend at this point, and this is where it should be respecting the downtrend. And then if it breaks that level, it's going to go to the next key area, the next big area of liquidity, which is going to be here. So my plan is for price to get up to that point, and then, I mean, ideally at the same at this point, but it's just blasted through. I want price to come up to this point, and then I want it to range, and then I'm going to wait for it. This can all be on this time frame, or I can look for a range down on H4. I can look for on H2. I can look for H1. Doesn't really matter what time frame. Like I said earlier, I'm just waiting for the cleanest pattern. And then once it's done this, it might break to the downside and give me its signal of intent. I'm not taking that trade just yet because, as I said earlier, you tend to get a lot of farting around. And then I'll wait for maybe price to come up, put a lower high in, respect the highs of the range, and then create a lower low. And then that'll be my trigger to get short. Sometimes it might be that it then does it again because not everything's perfect. Usually for reversals like this, it does take 3 or 4 sort of moves before it ends up going. But in general, I'll start building a trade on that second trigger. And then if it does that and then breaks to the upside after 2 failed attempts to the downside and this big trend up, then I know my bias is actually, well, we've tried to break out of this range. We've got strong momentum to the upside. The lows failed and it's now pushing up above the range high and looking like a trend continuation. That would then be my trade on the break. Oops, on the break of that high and a close above it. What is going on? Yeah, okay. There we go. Very slow. That would then be my trade like that, and then I'd look for next. I mean, it wouldn't be exactly that. This is obviously a very wide one, but just for the sake of this example, that's how I would trade it, and then hope to get high because I've got the key level has failed to push us down, a couple of attempts down, and then we've got a rip up to continue that trend. So that's what I'm looking for, and again, that'll be either on the daily time frame or the 4-hourly time frame or a lower time frame. But I'm basically looking for that type of price action and pattern at this level, or I want it to come back down here and do the same, just range. And then if I feel like it's going to retrace here, for example, I would take that as a break. 3 big, strong green candles to the upside. So on a retest of this level, I'd be favoring longs because the momentum is up. So again, I'm just looking for a range at the previous range, and this is a key range because it's where the buying took place to break the downtrend. And then again, I'll just look for a couple of breakouts to the upside and then look to continue. Could be on any time frame. Usually if I've got a daily level, I want to get down to the 4-hourly or the hourly. If I'm on M5, I'm getting down to the 1 minute. Or if I'm looking at 4-hourlies or 2-hourlies, it could be on M15. It really depends on what the chart is given. So in this instance, you can see price comes up and then forms the range like this. It's a bit scrappy. But if you watch my videos, I look for the trend, I look for the retrace, and then once the trend high is retested, I'll use that high as my range high, and then I'll use that low that pushed up to hit that high as the range low, and then just wait for the breakout like this. So that's what I'm seeing here. We're kind of in the vicinity of a key level. So what I prefer to see really is a continuation of the downtrend, or it might fake the lows, fake the high, drop, and then continue. Or we know what happened in this instance because we've already seen it. But you can see it spends time within the range, breaks up, and then this instance, you've got to be a little bit wary because, okay, this is the first breakout after consolidation, doing it right into supply. And then it takes the supply and then immediately shoots right back down. But look where it comes down to, right into the range low, and then breaks it. So again, this is not the trigger because I don't have my double. I would want to see it come back up one more time and then go and then look for a short. So this is my signal of intent. This is my now confirmed fake out because I wouldn't have gone long here because it's just one signal for me. It's just one bit of information. And then we can see we get the trend continuation. It comes right up to the high, but doesn't break it because at this point, it's still potentially a lower high, and then we get a lower low. But again, we know what happens because we've seen it, and it starts pushing up. So technically now, after it has created this high and now this high, after taking out that low in an uptrend and breaking this level, I would say like that would be a long. I wouldn't take it on this time frame looking like that, but I'd start looking for longs because of this information. And then obviously we know it starts just pushing up, comes to this high. Look what it's doing now. Can we get this an H4? If that was an H4, it looks like a really beautiful pattern. We have a really clean range that has formed here. So using the same method, it trends up, retraces to put the low in, and then when it pushes up again to test the high, we have another clean range. So again, what I'm going to look for is maybe this is exhausted. So I want to see it drop, lower high, drop, lower high, drop, and then look for a reversal. Or because it's trending, maybe it pushes up, holds the lows, starts breaking above the highs, and then creates a continuation pattern. What happens here? You can see it stays range bound, hits the low, bounces off the low. Okay, so you have your signal of intent there to say, okay, maybe this is actually thinking about dropping. And then it comes right back into the range. So from this point, I now would, if I'm bearish, I want to see it round off and close below this low pretty quickly to expect a drop. Stays within the range, and the more time it spends within the range at this point after taking this low, the more bullish it is. Comes to the high, hasn't broken it, it's wicked it, but you don't want to take a breakout like that. That's more like the breakout you would want to take. But again, signal of intent, this looks really good, right? Because it's trended up, ranged, faked the low, and then with strength pushed above the high. So technically you can long that, and that's maybe a small position that I'd build, because what I don't like is that we're right at the high and I'm looking for a continuation. What I'd want to see ideally is for a higher low and then another higher high, and then I'd have more conviction. What happens? Comes down, and then it starts ranging again, and then I'd take this. Like, I wouldn't put much risk on it because we're on a continuation and we're right at the top of the swing, and there's a lot of potential to get fucked here. But technically that's a long because it's now broken above, retested the range high, ranged again, and now it's breaking up. So again, I would take this, but not high risk. I'd maybe build a position, because if it does then come back down, hold the previous range high as support, and then break up again, I would imagine we're going to continue the trend. What happens? Back down into the range. And there you go. That would be your trade. And like I said, we're at the high, so I wouldn't be too keen on this. All right, it comes back down to the range low, would have stopped me out. And now I'm thinking we've had a few pushes up and now we're coming back down. So I'd like to see it maybe put one more lower high in and then a lower low. And then I'll be looking for a reversal like this, potentially. And then it's just ranging. Maybe it breaks out again, but not enough strength there. So you can see how this has been used as a map, and you can see where the other like smaller ranges formed, like at the high here and this high. So technically this would be, if I'm using this range, this would be a good short because we've had the range up, uses the previous range as support, fakes the high, signal of intent back into the range, and then there. The thing that would put me off this is that we're coming back right into the range low, and it has potential to do this. So if it comes down, lower high, lower low, something like that would be a nice trade. But also equally, if we get now a higher high, that should be. But again, I don't like the sidewaysness of it. So you can see there's a lot of like, there's a lot of information I'm taking in and liking and disliking, but we're just range bound. Takes the low now, but it's wicked it. And then technically that would be a nice looking short. It's not the greatest. I wouldn't put full risk on that. I'd probably build into it. I'd use the previous structure before this low above the range high. And then I would think, because this is all a retrace, I'd probably look a little bit lower to the bottom of the swing. Down here where the origin of this thing is. You got the trend and then you got the break like so, right? So technically that's a short. Not super keen on it for this reason. But then this is where, like, if you skip that, you get the drop, high, retrace high, higher low, higher high, back into the range. And now this is now looking like it might burst up. This is GU though, so it is a piece of shit, as you will see. So yeah, like there's a lot of things I'm putting together. I don't actually know what happens now. Let's just fuck this off. But I'm using these ranges around key areas to build a pattern, and then I'll follow the pattern based on the break. This is not the greatest example because GU's in like a massive range on the daily time frame. But that is essentially like the process. Like here on H1, we've got this high, and I can't see anything on H1 that makes me look like I want to get involved. And then if I go down to M15, yeah, I can't really see anything. I haven't been trading this. We're in summer chop, right? But for the argument's sake, we get this big move, and then we get a retrace, and then we just get a little cluster form here on the break of this resistance. So technically, like, this is when you're hunting. When you're hunting for trades, you know you're probably going to lose the trade. It should be really obvious, but comes down, breaks above, comes back down, and then breaks above. I'd probably take that, and then there you go, retraces. So yeah, I hope that answers a question, and I hope that kind of sheds some light on how I do things. But essentially, I'm just looking for key areas on the technical analysis, and then hunting for a range in order to reverse or follow the momentum. Okay, Adluis has asked, security margin when you identify your zones. I'm not sure what you mean by security margin. Do you mean how much risk am I using? And if so, again, I covered that last week, where if we get deep into a swing, I'm like, if we're here, right? Oh, Christ. Testosterone, blah, blah, blah. Why can't I use that? You're only allowed one a day or something. Fucking hell. Right, if I'm down here, you're going to have this level, this one, and then this one, right? So let's say we're here at these lows. I would tend to use maybe 1% risk on this one, building a position for 1% risk, probably 2 to 3 on this one, but then up here is the extreme, which is where it can't go any higher unless the market structure changes, and I'll probably look for like 4 to 5. But generally speaking, it depends on the volume. It depends on the signals from the market. Depends where we're at on the chart as well, what time of day. But usually I will use lower risk and just kind of feel it out. But have in mind a kind of overall amount of risk I want to use on any given level. Carlos is in the house, 8163. In your opinion, is it necessary to study stuff like order flow, Elliott wave, etc., or is it not necessary? What do you use? I use purely price action. I've always used price action. It depends on how you learn. It depends on like your brain, your personality, your experience. But essentially, I would say it's not necessary, but that's because I couldn't find use out of it. And I'm a visual person. I like to see it. I think you can get everything in the price action. Like I genuinely believe you don't need anything but the price action for trading. You can get the volume in it because you can see the size of the candles. You can watch the momentum build. You can watch the candles form and you can get an idea of what the buyers and sellers are doing. Like if you're looking at this candle form, for example, and it's like, wow, you got a big buyer step in, but then right at the last second, it starts ticking down and failing. You'll know there's a lot of selling coming in and it's likely a fake move. But if you're looking at purely the candle, then you get that information from it. But I would always recommend just pure price action, but it requires a lot of time on the charts and it requires a lot of time practicing, studying, and not everyone wants to do that. You can probably get quicker answers, if that makes sense, from things like the Elliott wave or the order flow, because you can match data and you can correlate data. Whereas with price action, it's a little bit more based on feel, a bit more discretionary, and requires a lot more chart reading, like I said, and staring at things for the opportunity. Because like if I'm watching, let's say we're on the 1 minute time frame now, and I'm watching all of this develop, and then you got your signal there, and then you got your breakdown here. I'm trying to enter on that because I'm reading all of the information from the chart. But that's not to say that the other stuff doesn't work. It's just I genuinely believe you only need price action and nothing else. So it's up to you, basically, is my cop-out answer. But yeah, if someone said, like, what's the best thing? I'm really passionate about trading and I want to spend a lot of time getting to, like, improve it and be profitable. I would say focus on the price action only and nothing else. All right, guys, we've hit about an hour and a half, so I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for your questions. It makes these streams worthwhile for me and gives a lot of content and also helps you guys out. So don't be shy to ask in future. And Wednesday, I've got Crypto Monk coming on stream. So that'll be a good one. If you've got any questions for him, let me know and I can ask on the stream. If you are looking for crypto prop firms, use HyroTrader. You get 10% off the challenge fees by using the code TraderMatt or using my affiliate link in the description and comments. I've got a live trading event on Thursday at 12 p.m. UK time, where I will be looking to day trade Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, Hype on HyroTrader on a 100K challenge account. So hopefully see you there for that. To get involved with that, either subscribe on X or sign up to HyroTrader and DM me your Discord name, and I'll get you in for that, and then you can watch it. The replay will be available to subscribers, so if you can't catch the event, you can watch it afterwards. And then if you are subscribing for that, then you'll also get a month with the Discord, daily market reviews and educational content each week. Thanks, I agree. Price action is king. I also only price action. Since your buddy Exos uses it additionally, I want to know your opinion. Yeah, he uses it as extra confluence. He likes to look at the numbers as they're coming in. So he's reading like the data here. But I'm just literally reading the chart. But horses for courses, he likes that. I'm not so much. I like to keep things simple, less decision fatigue that way. And I don't have to think about as many things when I'm looking to execute, other than when am I going to execute. And I just find too much information can be conflicting and makes me second guess things. So yeah, he uses it very effectively. He'll have like an idea that this is topped, and then me and him both shorted at this point. Actually, I waited for the breakdown. He hit the high because he saw something on the order flow. But again, it's horses for courses. All right, guys, thanks again, and I will speak to you next time.